All right, today we're diving into one of archaeology's weirdest and most debated mysteries, the Baghdad Battery. This is a discovery that, if it's what some people think it is, could seriously rewrite the history of technology.
So let's just start with the big question, the one that's been baffling historians and scientists for decades. Is it even possible that an ancient civilization figured out and harnessed electricity 2,000 years before Alessandro Volta? So, here it is, the artifact we're talking about. Now, at first glance, yeah, it looks like a simple clay pot, but inside, that's where it gets interesting. There's a very specific setup, a copper cylinder, and right in the middle of that, an iron rod, all sealed up with an asphalt plug. These are the parts of what some people, controversially, call the Baghdad Battery. Okay, let's start to unravel this thing. To really get what the debate's all about, we gotta go back in time, to where and when it was found. The artifact was dug up back in 1936, during the construction of a railway near Baghdad. The spot, Khujut Rabu, was right near Ctesiphon, which was the old capital of the powerful Parthian and Sasanian empires. This means the object is from sometime between 250 BC and 650 AD. Let's break down its construction, because it's an incredibly specific design. You've got the clay jar, about 14 centimeters tall. Inside, there's that copper cylinder, which keeps the central iron rod from touching anything. And it's all sealed with an asphalt plug, which holds that iron rod perfectly in the center, making sure it doesn't touch the copper. And it's that very specific design that leads us to the most sensational theory of all, that this thing wasn't just a container, but a primitive galvanic cell, a battery.
So, what's a galvanic cell? It's the basic science behind any battery. You take two different metals, in this case iron and copper, and you stick them in a conductive solution called an electrolyte. That simple setup creates an electric current.
This whole idea was first floated back in 1938 by Wilhelm Koenig, who was the director of the National Museum of Iraq at the time. He hypothesized that if you filled the jar with an acidic electrolyte, like vinegar or grape juice, things that were widely available back then, this whole assembly would actually produce electricity.
And how much electricity are we talking about? Well, experiments with replicas have shown that a single jar can generate about 1 volt of power. It's not a lot, but it is a real, measurable electric current coming from a 2,000-year-old design.
But what good is a single volt of electricity in a world without wires and light bulbs? I mean, what would that even imply about how they saw the world? Well, supporters of the theory have some fascinating ideas. The first is electroplating, using it to put a thin layer of gold on silver jewelry. Another possibility is electrotherapy. We know ancient people used electric fish to numb pain. Or maybe, just maybe, it was used in religious rituals to give a little shock to believers who touched a statue, creating the illusion with a divine presence.
And this isn't just pure speculation. Modern experiments have actually confirmed the principle works. Even the show Mythbusters built replicas, and by hooking several up in a series, they generated enough current to do some minor electroplating. So, technically, it's possible.
But, and this is a really big but, most archaeologists and historians are extremely skeptical. So let's look at their side of the argument, which is, well, pretty convincing.
The battery theory runs into some huge problems. First off, no wires or connectors have ever been found. I mean, how could you use electricity without a way to direct it? Second, that asphalt plug seals the jar completely shut, making it almost impossible to refill with an electrolyte. Then, there's the fact that there is absolutely zero archaeological evidence of any electroplated objects from that time. And finally, 1 volt is just too weak for most of the practical applications people have suggested.
And this pretty much sums up the consensus. Professor Elizabeth Stone from Stony Brook University, an expert in Iraqi archaeology, puts it bluntly. I don't know any archaeologist in the field who believes these were batteries.
So if it wasn't a battery, then what was it? Well, the archaeological community has a much simpler and, crucially, a much better supported explanation. So you're looking at two fundamentally opposite possibilities. On one hand, you have the extraordinary theory of an ancient battery, a device that needs a liquid to come alive. On the other hand, a much more down-to-earth theory, a container for sacred scrolls where that exact same liquid would be an agent of destruction, completely ruining the very thing it was meant to protect.
And here's the key piece of evidence. Archaeologists have found almost identical containers at nearby sites, like Seleucia, and guess what was inside them? Not electrodes, but degraded remnants of papyrus and parchment. According to this theory, the iron rod was simply the spindle the scroll was wrapped around, and the copper cylinder acted as a protective case.
So, where does that leave us? Even though the overwhelming majority of experts favor the scroll jar theory, the mystery of the Baghdad Battery lives on. And part of the reason is because of a tragic event. Let's just quickly recap the artifact's modern story. It's discovered in 36, the battery theory is proposed in 38, replicas are shown to work in 2005, and then, the devastating climax, in 2003, the original artifact was lost.
The artifact was among the thousands of priceless objects looted from the National Museum of Iraq during the chaos of the 2003 invasion. Its current whereabouts are unknown. This means we can probably never run definitive tests on it, leaving its mystery to endure forever.
So we're left with this question. Was it a flicker of technological genius, evidence of a lost knowledge, or was it just a ritual object for storing sacred texts whose resemblance to a battery is just a bizarre coincidence of history? Whatever the truth is, its secret is now most likely lost for good.